with about 400 other people watching Canelo Alvarez. Those guys were just teeing off on each other, and that was enjoyable to me. I mean, there is something about the human instinct that we do want to see a little bit of violence once in a while. I mean, there is something about the human nature that every once in a while, the three original sports are running, fighting, and throwing. And that's really what, if you look at most sports, it comes down to that, one way or the other.
Yeah, you're right. That's pretty much how sports are done, and it was kind of what the Greeks were doing in the early Olympics and things of that nature. Now, we had Margot on, and she's been on with us and everything, but one of the things that I was always impressed about wrestling, even when it's been a fake sport, is that wrestling seems to be one of those sports that also encourage innovation in terms of, like, not being afraid of things. Like, I mean, wrestling was one of the sports that had, like, a super tall person that was there. I'm thinking like Andre the Giant. They had people that would be considered now plus size. They were part of the wrestling team, and they didn't, like, discourage them from having positive images about what was going on in their sport as that size or whatever. They brought in, like you said, women. They brought in different ethnicities. So it seems to me that even though it has definitely been an entertainment sport, it has also been a sport that has been very much open about trying to encourage people and encourage positive images.
Well, that's a great point. And, even at WrestleMania 3, there's a famous WrestleMania 3 moment where King Kong Bundy body slammed, I believe it was Little Beaver, who was, as you could guess, a smaller guy. He competed as what they called at the time midget wrestlers. And it was kind of an epic moment to see this 450-pound, 6-foot-tall, at least guy, Bundy, body slam this guy that was probably 3 feet tall. So, and that, of course, ended the match in a disqualification. I'll tell you another guy that's really tall is Kevin Nash, who you might remember as the pro wrestler Diesel. He was also in the Magic Mike movies. I got to actually write a character named Father Thomas for this movie, The Manor, that Lionsgate promoted and distributed. And I actually had to have had scenes with Kevin Nash. And, it's funny because Kevin Nash is probably 55 years old, but he can still tell a story, like he's 25 years old, if you know what I mean. I mean, the guy's just full of life and he's full of charisma. And when you walk into a room with big, sexy Kevin Nash, that's his nickname, people take notice of this guy because, I mean, he's 7 feet tall and his head is like the size of a normal head and a half. And I've been lucky, guys. I've had some experiences like with Meryl Streep and Elizabeth Shue, but really I get satisfaction if people want to check me out. My website is right there. It's MikeMessier.com and YouTube, Mike Messier. People can watch my Disregard the Vampire, Mike Messier documentary. What I'm really trying to do with my life is get my own projects ahead. I mean, I can worry about Vince McMahon and his wrestling company, but as you might know, I'm on a bit of a sabbatical. I'm taking the Raw Protest, hashtag Raw Protest. I'm so much more into my own life right now as an artist, as a writer, as an actor, that I'm not concerned with WWE tonight, at least, because I'd rather be talking with you guys.
And we appreciate it. And that's actually interesting that you brought that up because that's one of the things that Marco said earlier today was that she's not all that concerned about what's going on in the political circles and everything. She will follow the news and she has opinions about what's going on in the news, but she's not going to get caught up in it and hung up on it the way that some people get hung up and caught up on these different things. And she's actually just trying to live that wellness journey that she's been on now for a few years of trying to live that positive, very self-esteem kind of life of being encouraged about who she is and where she is.
Well, that's true. And the thing is, my dad and my stepmom, they were what I would call, news addicts, and I remember that when I would come home sometimes to see my father, he'd always have, originally it was McNeil Lehrer News Hour, and then it got to be the O.J. case, and he would just sit there and watch the news for hours and hours, and it would actually give me a sense of nausea or a sense of distress because the events, not to say that we have to be aware of what's going on in the world, that's true, but some people are more sensitive to these things than the others. And I don't think people need to feel bad if news is not their thing or if sports is not their thing or if wrestling is not their thing. I do think that more intelligent people maybe need to get out of fanboy mode. And I can speak from experience. You know, being a wrestling fan, it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of mental energy. If I focused all my time and energy on writing my own scripts, on directing my own pieces, on making things happen, rather than worry about, you know, which wrestler got knocked out last week on Monday Night Raw and what are the ramifications, the reality is these people don't care about me. I had a job interview for WWE. They should have hired me, and they didn't. So it's time for me to move on with my own life. And you know, for the guest you had that said that she doesn't get hung up on the news, that's a smart way to approach life, because the reality comes that we're all given, you know, say, you know, if we're lucky, you know, somewhere between 40 and 100 years of life, and some people go into, you know, 105 years or whatever, but every day is precious. Every minute is precious. And if you give, you know, 30 minutes of your time to some sitcom rerun or worrying about the next Star Wars movie, those people aren't concerned about you. You know what I mean? So we all kind of have to look out for ourselves.
Can I just add to that for 1 second? Because that's exactly what I was trying to say. I used to spend a lot of time watching, like, The Real Housewives of something, right? I could have been living my own life. Like, it's like, that's exactly, yes, I agree 100%.
I appreciate it, because whether it's The Real Housewives or whether it's WWE Raw, and I mean, and I was watching some reality show the other. I went to a buddy's house. We were watching football. It's kind of our thing to watch football, and somehow a reality show commercial came on, and I said to my friend, you know what it is about these reality shows? It's the editing. Before you realize how bad the content is or how obnoxious the people are on these reality shows, the editing is done so well that they cut to another camera or they cut to another segment or they put a little jingle and you're hooked. It's brain candy. It's not Shakespeare. It's not nourishment. It's not a fine art film at your local cinema or a theater piece. You know what I mean? It's brain candy, and pro wrestling, unfortunately, has kind of gone that same way recently, at least in my book.
Yeah, it seems like it's definitely done that. Now, Tony and Margo, just out of real curiosity, and then I'll jump into another question I had as well, but with Mess here and everything. But for both of you, are you sports fans? And if so, what is your sport of choice?
I am not I'm not a crazy sports fan, but if I am watching sports, it would be tennis. Okay. And believe it or not, I like to watch golf because I find it relaxing. Really. But I don't watch, like, basketball, baseball, all that. Baseball is, no, too much. It takes too long for something to happen.
And what about you, Tony? Tony,
for me? Well, I don't know if Tony's...
Hold on.
Tony, what? Yep.
Huh? Easy.
Yeah, Tony, I was saying, are you a sports fan as well? And if so, what is your sport of choice?
Actually, I'm not really, but, you know, living in Durham, we have to, you know, Duke basketball is huge. So, but if I walk by a TV and something's going on, I like it enough to where I'll stop and watch and follow it, but it's, no. But Duke basketball, you know, you have to. If you live in Durham, you have to go, hey, Duke. Just all right.
Yeah, that is true. There are certain teams that you have to root for. Duke, if you're in Durham, you're probably going to get pulled into root for them. North Carolina Central, definitely the Durham Bulls.
Absolutely. Durham Bulls.
Won the championship this year in the Governor's Cup and then lost the AAA championship. But you're absolutely right that you do get pulled into certain things and everything that you wind up rooting for. So there's no doubt about that. Now, coming up to Margo and the golf and everything, that's one point that I have an uncle that was very big into it. He actually played, like, on a local level. He taught some of our athletes. Like, I won't say he taught Jordan and Worthy how to play the game, but I don't see how you can watch it on TV. Because that to me on TV just seems like very, like, watching paint dry.
Because the grass is extremely green, the colors are absolutely beautiful, the voice of the moderator is really, really, really relaxing. That's why I like to watch it.
The relaxing can work for you. I can understand that. It does not work for me, but it doesn't have to work for everybody. Now, Mr. Messier, when people are telling you that they want to get into writing and they want to get into the entertainment field, I know you're trying to break into it yourself, but what advice do you give to people that are trying to break into it? And the same question would go to Tony as well, because I know Tony's been painting forever, and of course he's very much into the coastal scenes right now. But for both you and Tony, but I'll start with you, Mr. Messier. What advice do you give to people that are trying to do what you're doing, that want to get into the arts? Because, I mean, you're definitely into script writing, and, you know, everybody claims that they got the next great movie, but I'm sure not everybody has it, but everybody thinks they got the next great movie. So when you're talking about, like, the students that you did not have today, what advice do you tell them to encourage them to be into it?
Well, I'll give an endorsement to something that I've invested in, and it's not a product placement because I'm getting no money from this. But basically, masterclass.com. If people can look up masterclass.com, I'm just going to run out feedback, guys. Masterclass.com is a website where some of the great filmmakers and screenwriters and book authors and Annie Leibovitz for photography, the basketball player, the guy that's the greatest player right now besides LeBron, the three-point shooter for the Golden State, he even has a class, Steph Curry. So if people look up Masterclass, they can take a bunch of classes. They have a deal, last time I checked, $180 for all the classes for a year, and they have a lot of information. I have a YouTube video somewhere, Mike Messier at South Shore Filmmakers Group, where I speak for about an hour and a half about making an independent film. But the reality is, these days, there really is no table of contents or guidebook. It's just get a camera, get some actors, and make a movie. I think the biggest thing that I would say to anybody, if they want to be a screenwriter, is take a screenwriting class, whether it's online or in person. If you take the online classes, they're not terribly expensive. The master class is a great place. And get Final Draft, which is a screenwriting program. I think a lot of people try to skip the step of using the right screenwriting program for whatever reason. People are trying to write screenplays with Microsoft Word for a program, and it's atrocious. I mean, it's horrible. People need to invest in a proper screenwriting program, and I would always go with Final Draft. So that's pretty much what I would say, guys. I mean, there's more to it, of course. Take some acting classes. You know, a lot of people want to be actors, but they cringe when an opportunity to take an acting class comes up. They don't seem to be available, or they seem to have an excuse, or they don't want to spend the money. You know, some of the best acting I've seen has been in acting classes that either I've taught myself or I've taken. And yet, for some reason, a lot of people are afraid to take an acting class, or they don't do it. So that's a major point of contention. You know, people need. It's like anything else. You wouldn't try to be a major league pitcher if you didn't have a bad pitching coach, or you wouldn't try to be, a great baseball swinger or a piano player if you didn't take lessons. Yet somehow in this day of YouTube and everyone's got a blog, people think that they can just, go out and film themselves on a phone and somehow they're an actor. Well, it's not really the case in my book.
Understood. And Tony, what advice would you give to people that want to be involved in the arts? Because you've been a visual artist for a while. So what kind of advice would you give to people that want to get into the arts?
Well, I guess part of it would depend on how they want to be in the arts. Generally, if you want to become a professional artist, that's one thing. If you want to be a hobby artist, that's a whole other thing. But I think anybody needs to be pursuing some sort of creativity. Everybody can be creative in their own way. Not everybody can be a painter, but that's sometimes we have this idea that if you just throw something on the canvas, then it's nobody can say it's bad. It's good art. I don't necessarily believe it. I believe if you're going to be a good painter, then you actually have to put the work in. You have to, you have to paint. You have to draw. You have to find classes. You have to just, find yourself a mentor. You have to find some way that pushes yourself beyond just doodling. But a lot of people, they're happy with sitting in their living room or their dining room and doing a painting every now and then. But I think part of it has to sort of come down to what is your passion. If basically if your passion is to paint. I know for me, I paint my head all day long every day. Everything is constantly going on there. So that is my passion. But a lot of people, if they want to become